Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dynamo's Dozen, the podcast that I bring you each and every single week, where I talk about whatever may be on my mind, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, muesli, fresh socks and jocks, and everything in between, never forgetting the talc. And you are very welcome to a brand new spin-off of Dynamo's Dozen, which is going to be called Dynamo's Dozens Mysteries and Theories. And today I welcome an extremely special guest in the world of Sasquatch. That is right, Mr. Ron Morehead. Anybody who knows anything about the world of Bigfoot or Sasquatch knows exactly who Ron Morehead is. He is an author, adventurist, producer of the Sierra Sounds, the most infamous recordings of actual Bigfoot speak. And the guy is an absolute legend in this field. He's been known for decades in his worldwide search into the Bigfoot and Sasquatch phenomenon. To date, he still comes closer than any other researcher to having what he considers, and what many people consider, an actual foolproof body of evidence. And he joins me today on the show to talk about everything Bigfoot and Sasquatch. So strap in, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to be good. And welcome. Here we are, myself, Ian the Dynamo Kelly, and a legend, and a man with a deeper voice than me, Mr. Ron Morehead. Welcome to the show, sir.
Well, thank you, Ian. I appreciate that. I wouldn't expect a deeper voice than you, but I guess that's what it is.
You have one of the coolest.
No, happy to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, and thank you for taking the time out to join us. Where are you based now? You're basically up in the mountains, right?
Right now I'm in Washington State,
Washington State.
on the Olympic Peninsula. We'll be leaving here shortly. I got a month to spend in North Carolina here in November, and then I got to go to California in October. So anyway, but I'm in Sequim, Washington right now.
Nice.
And, been here for the last 6 years, off and on, when I'm not traveling somewhere.
Awesome. And a lot of my, there'll be a lot of my listeners that know that I'm into I'm very into the world of, the paranormal, the unknown, the mysteries that this world has to provide us. And one of my favorite subjects is, of course, the phenomenon that is Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever we want to call them. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I heard the Sierra Sounds, and I remember going, what in the name of, I think I was maybe 10 or 11. And I'm not gonna I'm not gonna swear in your presence, but let's just say it left me pretty messed up for a couple of days. I was like, "What is
sorry
this?"
about that.
No, it's a good thing. It was just more like, we talk about lake monsters and stuff like that, and we look at hoaxes with Loch Ness that we have closer to home over here, and stuff like that. And you're trusting, you're trusting someone on a camera to have a still shot, but you actually went and got sounds.
Well, we just lucky, I guess. Right space for the right thing, doing the right thing, and this thing. So probably still see.
So
okay.
Why don't you take us back to that? I suppose in terms of, before we get to what you recorded, when did you first kind of hear of Sasquatch? Was it the Patterson-Gimlin tapes, or?
I was aware of that film, but that wasn't what got me into it.
Okay.
What got me into it was actually going up there where these hunters that I knew well
Sure.
started encountering these things, and they came out, and I wasn't a hunter at the time. This is 1971.
Sure.
And I was 29 then, so you can do the math on that one.
You're still
looking
good
when you say you're just a kid.
You're still looking good, my friend.
Anyway, one of the guys, the two brothers, Johnson brothers, went up there and had encountered these things when they came around the camp. Now, they've been in this camp since 1958, I think it was. So it's a long time. It's about 8 miles in the wilderness in the Sierra Nevada mountains of California.
Wow.
And 8,400 feet in elevation. So wintertime, you're blocked out from the snow load and all. So you just get up there in the summertime. And so they came out with this story and told the other hunters, which I knew them all personally. I was friends with them. And the guys didn't want to know what was going on. So they went up there, all of them. And one of the guys got just real freaked out. And he left the next morning as soon as he could see daylight and get out, because you can't leave up there at night. You're just stuck. And anyway, he came out and said it sounds like he just froze. He was raised religiously. He didn't know where that might fit into anything that he was aware of, and it just really, you talk about it, messed you up for a couple of days. It messed him
Sure.
up for life, I think.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's really a pretty horrific sounding thing. So, and when he experienced them, like I say, he left a note and just took off. And so the other guy hadn't came out when they were supposed to. At the time, they really didn't know what they were dealing with. If it was a monster going to eat them, or if it was going to carry them away in the sleeping bag, or what. But he came out and told the women, it sounds like what they encountered up there was some kind of monster. He don't know what it was, but he didn't want anything to do with it. So the guys didn't get back when they were supposed to. So the women wanted him to go back, and he wouldn't go back by himself. So that's how I got invited. I knew them, and they trusted me, and so we made the trek in. Pretty imposing trek. I walked in with him. I thought I was in good shape, but it's a pretty
Sure.
imposing trail.
8 miles,
And
yeah.
and well, it's not just 8 miles; it's the way you got to do the eight
Yeah,
miles.
yeah, sure.
And since then, I've had a few accidents. All of us have had accidents off that area sometime or another.
Of course.
But that got me involved, and I started going back as I was a kid. I got up there, him and I did, and the guys were just packing up to leave. So we
Sure.
barely got in there in time for them to shove me on a horse and get me out of there because I couldn't walk anymore. My legs were like jello. But I did
Sure.
see my track and seen what they had recorded because they took tape recorders back in with them.
Sure.
And we came out, and as soon as I could get back and go back with somebody, I would go back as often as I could. And we all took tape recorders, and these things continued to come around the camp and making these aggressive sounds. And that's the way it was in 71 and 72. The winter of 72, one of the Johnson brothers, senior of our group, he's passed away now. He wrote a letter to Ivan Sanderson, who was a cryptozoologist back east and well known. And he thought it was probably a hoax because nobody has encounters like this where you actually get glimpses of these things and you hear them and record them. And he sent it off to a guy named Peter Byrne, which is on the West Coast in Oregon. Peter
Sure.
thinking the same thing, sent it just in case it was real. He sent it to somebody he knew down in Red Bluff, California, and that was Redding, California, excuse me.
Yeah.
That was a guy named Alan Berry. He and I later became friends, but he came down to interview us all, and we listened to us all separately and together, and we invited him in winter of 1972. So as soon as he could get in, he went in the following year, 72. And I started going back as often as I could too. He ended up looking for the hoax like everybody thought it was, and he couldn't find one, but he started recording. He got kind of caught up in it himself, but he was still looking for how could somebody could pull this off way back here. Never show themselves hardly because he never got even a glimpse. Uh, but anyway, that's how I got involved. And it's called the Sierra Sounds. I ended up recording these things that came back year after year, not every time, but very many times from 71 through 76, actually. So we all were, anytime we go up there, we take tape recorders and we'd record their vocalizations. Alan Berry was an investigative reporter out Reading. He wasn't just a guy we knew. He came up
Sure.
there again trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So he was still trying to do he has a master's degree in science. The guy's he's a writer, just nice guy. And we didn't know he was looking for a hoax. We thought he was just up there trying to experience some kind of fun something, we was
Sure.
having
Yeah.
fun
Yeah.
with it, even though it scared us. It might frighten you a little bit at first, but after that, you get used to it that they're not going to eat you or carry you away or something. Of course, we were all heavily armed.
Sure.
We always carried weapons with us, and not just for the case of Bigfoot attacked us, but there's other things up there can get you. There's a lot of bear up there. I've got a hat band made out of a 52-inch rattlesnake that we shot on the trail once up there.
Yeah.
Just you go prepared, and so anyway, we were all prepared to shoot our way out if we had to, but didn't have to do that. These things would come around, and I think that they realized we didn't want to shoot them, and they started interacting with us a little bit. And so that's how it all began for me. I started going back, and I started immediately looking history of giants. How can these things be around now? 'Cause, I mean, you're
Yeah.
talking about massive. Their feet are big, they're heavy, their voices are heavy and
Yeah.
big, and so that got us on the start. But Alan Berry ended up recording them, and then finally, right after that, he wrote a book, or co-wrote it with Ann Slade about our story. He got a professor at the University of Wyoming to look at the recordings that he made and to see if there was any foul play going on with them, if they were
Sure.
real. Electrical engineering, professor of electrical engineering. That was Professor Curlin at the University of Wyoming, and he did a year-long study and said they were genuine. They were not pre-made or remade or backed up, or played backwards, or no 60 cycle hum, which would have showed pre-recording, re-recording. They weren't speeded up, slowed down, and they were original. And that was a big step, but still, academia don't tackle this subject very easily. They don't accept it
No,
very easily. Even
exactly.
though
I
he's
mean,
written over 100 professional papers, this guy is undisputable. He's got all kinds of clearances and everything to do what he did. But we got the tapes established as being credible.
yeah,
However, the range they have within their vocal range is superior to humans.
sure.
It's
And you can
it
hear
goes
that in
below.
you can hear that. Yeah, it's very guttural, isn't it? It's like
Well,
very,
it can be, or it can be high. It
yeah,
can be whatever they want it to be.
yeah,
I mean, they're just amazing. Their vocal mechanism is amazing. Uh, it wasn't until a few years later we had a cryptolinguist trained by the Navy as a cryptolinguist. Scott Nelson's his
yeah,
name, and
yeah,
he analyzed the sounds too. He came all the way up from Missouri, where we was teaching foreign languages there in college, and interviewed me and Al Berry both, and was getting the context of the sounds and asked if he could study them. So he had heard them by accident on a program his son was doing, but he got a hold of him. He made contact with us, came out, and we interviewed. He got to study him, so we gave him a copy of them too, so he could look into them. He was trained to find out if there is languages, if it is a language by the human definition of language, and that means
Do you mind
that
if I
means a
ask you a
morpheme.
question on that? Actually, is that so? Was his first job obviously was to try and decipher whether this was a hoax? I'm sure that was in his mind, thinking, right, is it a hoax? And then secondly, okay, this is not a hoax. What is this thing? Yeah,
You're talking about Dr. Curlin or
yeah,
Scott
yeah,
Nelson?
yeah. Scott
Dr.
Nelson.
Curlin?
Oh,
Well,
Dr.
he was
Curlin.
a
Sorry,
scientist.
apologies. Yeah,
Yeah, he's not. Dr. Curlin's not going to say one with it. He just says that there's no evidences of any maldoings with these
sure,
tapes,
sure.
and they were. So there's where Dr. Curlin's works kind of stopped,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
but it wasn't until the cryptolinguist got a hold of him, and he's trained for 30 years. He's been doing this, and 20 years retired from the military as a cryptolinguist,
yeah,
assigned to places to just try to decipher, to transcribe it if it's a language. And when I say language, that's kind of a critical thing for me, and I hope for others too, because
sure,
that means a morphine stream of words which make a sapient sentence, and where it takes a special connection to the hyoid bone into the tongue and the nervous system and the brain, so you can relate in words like we're doing now what you're
sure.
seeing and what
Yeah,
you think. But no other animal on the face of this planet is supposed to have that. Yet these things have that. Yet they're capable of making speech and making sounds much higher and much lower than we do. I think they go in infrasound. I think they go in ultrasound. I think they can mimic just about any animal out there from what we've had done. We've had unprofessional people looking at these, and one guy, Thinker Thunker, did about a 20-minute segment on the Sierra Sounds, and he said that the one tone they can do five octaves in one tone, and he says that's humanly impossible.
yeah.
And he shows it on a graph, and of course that's what Curlin did too. He had a box in his paper they wrote on this, and it's actually Dr. Curlin's reports in a book called Man Like Monsters on Trial. That was published by UCB Press in Vancouver, BC in 1980. It gives the whole report in there, but it shows where there are a certain little piece of it that he showed on his graph, showed where their frequencies go much higher than what the average human can do, and it goes much lower also. And plus they can speak like we do in our language. I mean, in our language, but in our frequency.
So when we
So that got
hear
me studying giants and going on, but
no, it's really like
yeah.
for me, this is really, it's like we're recording a show, but I'm getting to ask you questions that I've always wanted to ask also. So it's kind of cool.
Okay, go for it.
And no, but I mean, for me, without getting to I'll bring the big questions later about what people have seen and stuff like that. But I'm interested now that we're on the conversation of, the sounds that they can make, because I'm big into music myself. I used to be in a rock band, very low key, but it's like they would have a Bigfoot would have a hell of a career in a heavy metal band, that's for sure. You probably wouldn't hear the music, but in terms of in terms of the sounds, like again, I will put I'll put all the links below in the description so that people could go to your website and hear the sounds and get your books, because I have read your two books, the Quantum Bigfoot and Voices in the Wilderness. Highly recommended for anybody that's into learning more about Bigfoot and just more about what work you've done. So we'll put those links in the description at the end. One of the things that I noticed, they call it the samurai sound. That's you kind of speaking back with them in these clips, right?
That was me
Yeah.
yelling at them one night.
It's
That was 1974. We'd already encountered
wow.
them 3 years earlier.
Wow.
And that was the night I got to see one, by the way, which is just a glimpse because they're so fast and they're so smooth. And
Okay.
this thing was, there were 3 of them, we believe.
Sure.
There was one behind us over here, and then there was 2 down below.
They go in packs, don't they? They kind of surround you. Is that true?
Well, they were that. Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah.
There's times when we jump out of the shelter trying to see them, and the one had been making sounds way behind the shelter. You know he couldn't see you, yet he would stop making the sounds as soon as you open the shelter door.
Wow.
The shelter is also just a bunch of logs leaning up against a cable, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
But this night was in 74, and they started interacting with us while we were outside the shelter, which is really unusual. And I was just there with one other guy, and me and my friend Bill. We'd packed some supplies in, and we were there that night. And they started rapping their rocks, pounding and stuff like that, and whooping. And if we found out from our encounters with them before, if you just be still and keep doing what you're doing, they come in closer. Then they start chattering amongst themselves, but this night they started crying out to me. And the cryptolinguist says that it seems like they were trying to slow their rapid chatter. They talk really, really fast. They slow their rapid chatter down to something that possibly we could communicate with.
Yeah.
So I'm quite sure that one of them was trying to say something to me. I don't know what he was, but I have no idea what. And I don't know if it's he or she, because I didn't see him doing it.
Yeah.
But it was quite an exciting night. And we both got glimpses of them that night, which was a long time coming, even though some of the others had got glimpses of them before, but I never had. And it's hard to get a glimpse. Most people wonder why you didn't get a picture when he's up there and all this happened. Well, it wasn't that we didn't try. We tried to get pictures with rigged up camera traps and everything, but it's like they were one step ahead of us on that stuff.
Yeah.
And
well, that's their
could get a
domain,
picture.
isn't it? You know what I mean?
Well, it is, but I mean, for them to understand what that thread's doing that's strapped across these 2 trees and black thread in the middle of the night, but they wouldn't trip it, or if they did have 3 cameras knocked off a tree up there, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
So we never did get a picture, and that's what we're really after. But we got the sounds, so that's what you're talking about now, is the sounds and the credibility to them. We also had a language specialist listen to them besides her cryptolinguist, and she says that no human can make that sound, and she challenges anyone to try it. Just do it.
Yeah.
If you think you can. A guy named Joe Rogan thinks he can do it, but I've challenged him. And
I'm glad you said that, because unfortunately I used to be a Joe Rogan fan, but I think Joe Rogan I think you got to give Joe Rogan a pass. I think he changes his mind every week these days.
Well, he needs to change his mind on this thing. Thing is, he didn't do his homework. He obviously didn't know anything about these when he started saying they were, he could do it and all that stuff. And
absolutely,
it's not like we backed up our truck in the back of a dirt road somewhere and opened up a 6-pack. It's not the way it happens. It's a very sober camp. It's long after a lot of effort to get in there, and he just needed to, because he seems like an intelligent guy, but he just needs to check things out before his mouth's off like that.
I agree. And then it's funny because when you look at it, then he hears certain sounds and he's like, oh, that's interesting. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that's interesting.
But also, you hear 2 of them talking to each other out there, chattering, and they're stepping on each other. So you can't fake that.
No.
First of all, he's going to duplicate. He's got to have 2 people that can do it.
Sure. I mean, it's got to be.
So you
got to have Robert Plant and Ian Gillan at the same time.
Yeah, and there was no manipulation in the tape, so they're real. That's been established now by science, and so anyway, and you get these people saying that humans can't do it, and I just challenge anyone to do it if you can.
Listen,
anyway,
I've tried a whoop or 2, in my time, and it's not an easy thing. It's
Well, the
really
whooping, I think can be, I think they
that
do different types of whoops. I've got them recorded. By the way, I have 2 CDs also. All this stuff's downloadable on my website,
yeah
ronmorehead.com.
yeah
But there's 2 CDs, which one's narrated by me. It is my story, and I integrate the sounds in it that I'm talking about. When you get to the context, you'll
yeah
hear the sounds. And also, the first one I produced was Alberry's story, and it's about 40 minutes. They're both about 40 minutes. We've
sure.
integrated Jonathan Frakes, Star Trek. He enters.
Oh, that's cool.
He talks in that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, paid him, but he did
Yeah.
it. So,
You got to spend money to make money, right?
well, and they made money on that one. I guarantee you that.
Right, we gotta send him an email. So in terms
Anyway,
of you mentioned something. Sorry if you don't mind me bringing you back a little bit, because
I'll
this
keep
is
doing it.
obviously
I get ahead of everything.
no. I'm glad you're steering the ship, my friend. I'm just a happy passenger. But there is one question I'd like to ask based on what you saw, because obviously listeners here are kind of, I'm sure there's many listeners here going, wow, that's crazy, especially when they hear what you recorded. But in terms of what you saw, you got a glimpse. Can you describe that for me?
No more than I did. It was running through the trees. It was a bright and moonlit night, 8,400 feet elevation
Sure,
in the mountains. It's pretty
sure.
bright. And it was going probably, I don't know, maybe 50 yards from me. And it made that samurai cry and shot down through where the other 2 were. And we think it was a female and an adolescent. So we think it was a family of them 3.
Sure.
And I got actually the little voice recorded too. If you
Oh,
buy
that's
my
amazing.
book, my Voices in the Wilderness book comes with a CD download of the sound. So when you get the context, you can hear the sound I'm talking about.
That's awesome.
And if you want the audio so you can play it in your car or something, then the CD is probably what you want. But anyway, you link into that audio, and I've got a big little, they call it. I think that's on my website too for free if somebody wants to just go listen to it.
Sure.
It's called Big Little Bits. A little voice with a big voice coming down on it, and I think maybe the little ones getting curious at night, and that brought the big ones around. I'm not sure.
And did it look like huge? Yeah, obviously.
It was huge and fast and smooth. That's strange because it just ran like nothing else you could imagine. A man couldn't run like this.
Sure.
There's logs. There's all kinds of brush and stuff laying around up there. You just don't go smooth riding down through the trees like that,
Yeah, of
breaking in
course.
and out
Yeah.
of the trees. And it was exciting, I got to tell you, but I can't give you any details on the thing because it
No,
didn't
of
stop and
course.
look at me.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I mean,
However, my daughter has saw them 3 times up there. She
oh,
got a
really?
little more detail.
And how would she describe what she saw? Like, would it be,
Big. It was about a little over 7 foot tall. It was staring at her, and I had walked in with the backpacks, and
Sure.
we had barrels up there strapped to the trees, so mules could bring our stuff in, and we wouldn't have to pack so much.
Sure.
Things I kept up there, things like that.
Yeah.
So we'd walked in and just had a good time. And one was staring at us while we was eating our dinner in the daytime. And
Wow.
she stood up to turn around to grab a paper towel off the tree there that we had. She saw it and she just froze. And I didn't know what.
Yeah.
So by the time I got it out of her and all that and turned around, it was gone.
Wow.
But went over there and I stood where it was. She's about 7'3", but that was one of her sightings, and that's in my rendered evidence in my book, second book.
Would
I
you
think.
would you be what would your opinion be on the Patterson-Gimlin footage? Because that's obviously
Well,
what a
I
lot of
believe
people.
it's real. I think Roger
Yeah.
probably did get a hold of this guy to phony it up because he was trying to do something with it, but because he did have a suit made, and I've known about that film now and I know Bob Gimlin pretty well. Of course, Roger Patterson passed away, but
Yeah, Bob seems like a nice
anyway,
guy, doesn't he? Yeah, he seems like
yeah, he gets around. Yeah, he's in his 80s. I think he's
yeah.
85. Anyway, yeah, I think the film is real. I know Bill Munns, who studied it thoroughly. I know Dr. Jeff Meldrum, he studied it thoroughly, and
Jeff
they've
Meldrum.
agreed. And also
Yeah.
another guy has studied it thoroughly, and you can't phony up what some of the stuff that they pulled out of that. So I tend to think it's real. What really brings the little cloud over it that some people still have a doubt, well, is it real? Well, the cloud is that you can't find the original film.
Okay.
the original. We're all seeing secondhand films,
Really?
and so that's what brings the doubt up in people's mind because they think the second roll of the film had been spliced and dubbied up, and
Sure.
they want to see the original. But that's the only issue that people have with it. But I do believe that, like I say, Roger Patterson was going to have something like that done, but he didn't get that far. He actually got a real one. He went into the spot where they've been reported, big tracks anyway. And
It's kind of crazy because I've seen people try and debunk it, and they say like when you look, in terms of the context, when you, I know there's a guy on YouTube. I don't know whether you're familiar with him, Tinker Tunker. Um,
yeah,
he kind of tries to look for things to debunk it, but he uses kind of like size and stuff, and he looks at the surroundings to try and measure height and kind of size to see whether it could be real or not. And he kind of, I think he had Paddy at about between 7 foot 8 and 8 foot, which is, that's absolutely crazy to think about. And plus, like, what year was that? 1967, 1968?
yes, October. Yeah, and I think the forensic study did it at 7 foot 3 3/4.
Maybe 7'3". Sorry, yeah, my
Yeah.
maths is terrible, so don't mind me. but then again, 7'3" and the size of the thing, and when you look at the
yeah.
arms and the face, it's
Well, when you see the tracks too, how deep they go into ground that you can't even make a print in, it obviously got to have some real density to them.
sure. Yeah.
And I don't think they're all the same, actually. I
That's
don't.
interesting. Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, it falls into possible alien or people from the cosmos who have been here, who are here now, and who are messing with the genome of different species. And I get into that in my Quantum Bigfoot book. But
Yeah,
I think probably the troglodytes did evolve. I'm not against evolution. I think it's not complete. There's something missing there,
yeah.
and evolution doesn't explain our consciousness. Doesn't explain
Okay.
how we are telepathic or how some people can do things. We have much more abilities in us than we want to accept. I think sometimes that's all we
Yeah,
have to do is look into it. These things may have evolved a little bit more because they seem to have an ability to. Since I've been studying this for 50 years now, um, they seem to have abilities that we have not tapped into how to use yet. And I think it's in the quantum realm of physics.
yeah.
And that's because they say, well, the quantum physics only works in the micro world, we're little bitty things, little things. Well,
Sure.
no, if it works, it works. It works throughout every particle of our body. We are, according to science, at the most minute level of our existence. We're energy vibrating at a frequency, and everything is. And it just brings you to open-mindedness a little bit, what we are. And if these things can have the vocal mechanism, according to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University, he said only humans have that type of connection into the brain that we have, the
Sure.
hive bone on up. And if these things have that, and they do, yet they can do more than we can do with their vocal mechanism, what does that tell us? Is there a part of us that's part of them, or is there part of them that's part of us? How is the evolution actually working there, and what has happened, and what brings about our consciousness and our cognizance? That there's more to us than just the physical body, and
Yeah,
we're not a body that's created a consciousness. We're consciousness that's created a body.
yeah.
And once we know how to tune in to our third eye and to get into all this stuff,
Sure.
I've been in this now for 15 years in the quantum physics. I've often wondered what science accounts for how these things did what they did up there, because there's other anomalies and mysteries that went on up there that I didn't talk about for years. And um, I had to get to the bottom of it, because Al Berry, who experienced some of them also, he said, you can't talk about this stuff. He had a master's degree in science, but
Sure.
it's classical science, Newtonian physics. You got to get out of Newtonian physics, get into modern science, which is quantum physics, and see how everything in the universe actually works. And everything does work like that in the universe, in the quantum realm. And that's where your consciousness comes in. So I get off the subject of Bigfoot a little bit, but I think if they
No.
have this same attribute that maybe we have,
Yeah.
maybe they're trying to teach us how to evolve into it, so we can
I heard a
connect with
great
it. Because
my partner, she's kind of got into Bigfoot through me, and she kind of, it was crazy because I always had this kind of idea that what if they were here before us. And I remember she said that to me one day. She was like, what if they were the original inhabitants of the planet. You know what I mean? They were,
Mhm.
and we were put here as some sort of, I don't know, we're probably getting into what people will think is kind of cuckoo, but for me, it's like anything is possible. Like, what if we're the experiment? You know what I mean? And it's kind of like, you know, we because we know. Well, you mentioned giants earlier, and you know, we know that they've excavated and dug and found giant bones, femur bones, and stuff like that of people that were up to 8 feet tall, actual giant people, and buried. I don't know whether that's the subject you want to get into, but that is that, you know, they found that. I'm not too sure where it was. I think it may have been in Mexico or something like that. Um, so it's really interesting that, like, the world as we know it, what do we know? Nothing still, right?
I was just writing an article on what do we know.
Yeah,
But I like your idea, the woo-woo camp, that the paranormal,
yeah,
but
yeah,
let's get, most people come Sunday, they believe in God. So there's a woo-woo that,
there
what
we
are you gonna do
go.
about that?
Yeah,
Yet these
absolutely.
same scientists that go to church on Sunday who
Yeah,
want to believe in Bigfoot, they have to have more than they can't get out of their disciplinary box, which is
yeah,
understandable.
yeah.
But I'm happy to be called a paranormal freak or woo or whatever you want to call
Me
it. But
too, me
you
too.
put me in the same box with Einstein, Tesla, Bohr, Schwarzer. These people were woo-wooers, if you really want to get in,
Yeah,
because they study
absolutely.
quantum
Yeah, yeah,
physics.
yeah.
Yeah.
They
So if
dared.
you want to get out of the box and know that there's more going on, is what you can see in our light's frequency, and everything is
Yes,
frequency,
it
energy,
is.
vibration,
It's
frequency.
true.
We only see within certain frequencies, and that's because of light. You get out of that, and there's other frequencies going on, other things existing out there that you can't see with your eyes. Our perception, and can they cloak? Can they disappear? There's a science that says, yeah, a lot of things cloak. I mean, you just got out of our perception. We can't see. Are they interdimensional? Well, I tend to think that they have the ability to transfer their matter into just energy and to go out of your perception. And
Okay.
that would also account for the trackways disappearing, which has happened to many people. For a long time, I was looking at this thing like they're just a monkey out in the woods that's running around, hadn't been discovered, but they're quite a bit more than that, I
A
gotta
little bit
tell you.
smarter than that, yeah.
Yeah. And your girlfriend's right. She's on the right trail, getting back into what did come first, the monkey or the man?
Yeah. It's not a chicken and an egg conversation here, yeah.
Well, I think the troglodytes evolved, but what was causing the hybrids, or if these things are a hybrid, and frankly, I think we're hybrids because something happened to our genome many, many moons ago, like eons of time, and we're given what we are now,
Yeah.
humans. And prior to that, you might have the cavemen out there banging each other over with a head or a stick or something, but
Yeah.
we don't do that. Well, we cut
Yeah.
each other's head
Well,
off
we
now.
we some of us, some people do.
Well, the key to this whole thing, when it gets down to the bottom line, is we got to be a better people as a country, and we got to get a collective love or compassion going on with this, because the longer we keep hurting, we're hurting everything,
Yeah.
and hurt is not where it's all at. It's all out in trying to be good, and
Yeah.
really, it's been taught by the masters of old. It's been taught for a long, long time. We're never going to accomplish anything. We keep murdering each other and banging around. Anyway,
Well
I
said.
forgot where I
Well
was.
said. Well said. No, I agree 100%. It's
Okay.
it's one thing that I the woo woo, as you said earlier, like, it's only now that people like Joe Rogan, like you say, now are like, oh, suddenly I believe in aliens again. It's like, oh, it
Yeah,
wasn't
the
cool
government
to
says
believe.
it's okay now to believe in aliens, so we
Yeah,
can do that
because
now.
basically the government had come out and said, okay, well, we cannot verify what these things are, especially when you had, I can't remember his name, the guy who was basically like the Top Gun. He was basically Maverick in Top Gun. I
Favor,
mean, and he found a
Commander Favor.
TikTok UFO. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
like,
he's not the only one. They're coming out of the woodwork
oh,
right
of
and
course,
left now.
of
They're seeing
course,
these things. People are filming them. They're seeing them,
Project Blue
and
Book. Yeah.
they're working in the quantum field.
Yeah.
And a lot of them are. If they come down in our three-dimensional environment, that's when you're going to see them solid. That's when you can deal with them. Talk to them. Otherwise, you got to do it on conscious level.
What if
That's how
we're
they're
the
moving around.
aliens that were put here
We
on this
were.
planet? You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
the light beings, God, by the way, in the Bible is plural.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
God is light. So if you get into God, what he is, he's light.
Yeah.
And I think the light beings are the higher dimensional people that are, and maybe they created us, and we are supposed to be followers of the light. And
Yep.
even the Bible says Jesus was the light of the world. He came into the world. I was raised religious. I'm not religious now.
Me too. Me
But
too. I'm not
I was
anymore.
raised religious, but there
Yeah.
comes a point when things just didn't add up, and some of the things there.
I'm a
So,
Celt. I'm a pagan being an Irishman. I'm a Celt. We
well,
we worship the sun and trees and stuff like that.
well, there's nothing wrong with that. Energy is energy. Trees, whether it's a
Exactly.
tree, whether it's whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you can connect with any of it. And I took a course in Unity years and years ago, connecting with different things, just because
Sure.
that's where your consciousness is. And once
Sure.
you learn how to connect with outside, I use a analogy of a spool of fish in the ocean, how
Yeah.
they all swim together,
Yeah.
turn the same time, same way the birds when they flock together, going like this.
Yeah.
They're not talking to each other. They're entangling with each other
Yeah.
quantumly. And we do that. That's when you might telepathically think, and Mary's fixing to call, and all of a sudden, Mary, the phone rings.
Yeah.
Things like that happen with us, and we need to pursue how that works. It's all, I think, how you connect in with your pineal gland, your third eye, which doesn't require light, but it's got all the attributes of an eyeball, just doesn't require light. That's what happens when you go into a deep sleep, into the alpha, to the theta state. Is a lot of times when even Tesla got his answers to a lot of his problems. I get carried away here. I just love that
No,
stuff.
you made I love this conversation. You made a really good point on a previous podcast. We'll give a shout out to Mysteries and Monsters. I think that's a great show. But you made a really good point on it about how you thought, what we consider the afterlife or heaven and hell, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
You made a really good point that you think that we are here. This is where we learn. You know what I mean? This is
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
then where we go after is kind of like, do we go back?
It's all about experiencing life in this
Yeah,
three-dimensional,
yeah,
because we can change it. We can raise our vibration in this environment, and you do that through compassion and love. You can raise your vibration to a
sure.
frequency where better things happen for you, and you start connecting more with different things, and including people. And yeah, I think I said, if you're a religious person and you change forms, because Stephen Hawkins in physics alone says energy can't die. It just changes form. This body is energy, and it's just going to change form. I'm just incarnating this body now. We probably incarnated things before. If you don't pan out and do what you're supposed to do, you'll have the opportunity to probably come back and do it again. That's
Yeah,
my thoughts. That
yeah,
goes against some religions, but it makes so much sense to me, and it just fits. And
yeah. Me too.
anyway, if you're a physicist and you change forms, you're just going to go to another dimension. And I think you probably graduate into the fifth dimension. A lot of us are trying to get through the fourth dimension now, and we're all in three-dimensional environment. And when these aliens and anything comes into our environment, they're subject to the rules of this third dimension. So they can be shot. Bigfoot can be shot. Whether or not he stays shot or not is another story.
Yeah,
Time is another thing. Time is another thing.
we haven't.
Time, according to physics, does not exist. We don't on linear time, and if you can jump, time travel, I think is according to physics is possible, and supposedly we've been doing it
Well,
for a long time. But
well, here's a question for you. With with obviously we know with the likes of Roswell and stuff like that. I know I'm not going into the UFO thing. I'm just asking the question that we know that the government has definitely found, especially the American government. I'm sure governments all around the world, there's been plenty in the likes of Chile and Mexico and stuff like that as well. They've obviously found these bodies. I mean, one of my favorite books that I read was the Day After Roswell from Colonel Philip J. Corso, who was on that. He was on basically the cover up team, and he kind of came out with it in later years because he had nothing to lose. The same question, I suppose, goes for something like Bigfoot. Do you think that some of these governments know that they exist, they have them, and they've possibly captured one or two or anything like that? And if so, why cover it up? Is it the same cover up that they buried giants back in the day? You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
pretty much. I think you're on it. Yeah, they know about them, I'm quite sure. And
Yeah.
but it throws a kink into Darwinism. It throws a kink into a lot of religions. People
Yeah.
just, I think we're going into discovery right now of
Yes.
discovering things, and I think that's the time we're in. I think that's what the Mayan calendar of 2012 was all about. I
Yeah.
always did think that we're just going to change. We're going to start being enlightened about things. And there's a statement that Nikola Tesla said. He says, "The day that science begins to study non-physical phenomena, will make more progress in one decade than all the previous centuries of its existence." So I think we're in that time now,
Yeah.
and I love it just because
Me too. Me
it's a
too.
good time to be alive.
Yeah, it's kind of with the kind of 2 years that we've had with the kind of whole coronavirus and lockdowns all across the world. It's given a lot of people time to maybe look into things that they may never have looked into previously, and
Hmm.
some good, some bad. But I would 100% agree with you. Getting back to Bigfoot, I mean, I'm a big fan and a big proponent of the Native Americans. Always have been.
Hmm. Me too.
And I mean, these guys, basically they drew them. They actually illustrated them on rock. Like they knew, right. This is I know they had different names for them. Sometimes they call them the mountain devil, or I think that's where the name Sasquatch originally came from as well, if I'm not mistaken. Um, by your experience, um, it seems to be that they, while we're out, or you're out studying them and looking for them, they're also studying you. So they obviously know the good and the bad of mankind, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're on the right trail there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we thought we were going up there and trying to study them and figure them out, but they were maybe trying to figure us out. They're just
Yeah.
curious about us. Uh, they never really hurt us or tried to. From the sounds, though, some of these things originally in 71, 72 were very aggressive. I mean, chest beating sounds, and
Oh,
again, they talk real rapidly. So uh, that's what the cryptolinguist did. He had to slow it down to transcribe the language that was in those tapes that we got, and we're all recordings. A lot of redundancy there with different
yeah.
sounds.
Yeah.
Uh, anyway, uh, there.
No, it's incredible. Listen, I know you're a busy man, so we'll kind of wrap up. I suppose one thing I would like to say, and I always do with guests, as I said, I would 100% encourage and implore people to go and check out the books, whether it be the audio, the CD version. And all people are into the audio these days, and it's narrated by yourself. You have a beautiful radio voice, anyway, my friend. So I would happily
Thank you.
listen to your audio in the car. I'm old school though, so I like reading. But for sure, go and check it out. Like you said, a lot of these clips, pretty much all the clips are there free on your website anyway. So you're not even charging people to go and check these sounds out. They're there. You can go and you can hear what Ron has recorded. And back in what year was it? Did you say 1974?
Well,
Um,
from 71 through 74,
through
76 was when we had our last, well, I shouldn't say the last close in encounters. After that, they were sort of, well, we shot a bear in camp, and
yeah,
uh, it was just one of those times when kind of stopped the close in stuff. And uh, anyway, I had my last actual vocal encounter was in 2011,
oh nice.
and then had last something strange happened up there in 2016,
Okay.
and that was very strange. We had a bolt of, I say bolt, it was a light, like a lightsaber in Star Wars,
Yeah.
comes floating by our tent.
Wow.
I mean, what do you do with that? This thing is
uh Not
intelligent.
much.
Whatever it is guiding through the trees. You just got to sit and wonder, what's going on.
Somebody
It
sent
went
you
away, but
something.
we
Yeah.
watched it for close to a minute, probably a long, long sighting of that. And it was just strange. It was in 2018 when I allowed David Paulides, who makes the Missing 411 books and DVDs. I have known him for years, and we got together and decided to go up there and document the camp a little bit and interview me at the camp. he did that and put it on a DVD, missing the hunted, missing 411, something like missing 411, the hunted. That's what it is. So I got about a 15-minute section on that, which and they recreated that light going by, which I thought they did a really good job. It looked just like what they recreated.
How do you
And no
feel
one's been
about?
up there since. What's that?
Sorry, no, go ahead. Continue.
Oh, well, I don't know if anyone's been up there since then because the fires moved in, California fires right after that, and I'm not sure if anyone's been up there since the fires and see what the damage has been done.
There was one gentleman I just wanted to ask you about before you go. You probably know what I'm going to ask you. There's certain hoaxers and there's certain people within the Bigfoot community that like Bigfoot community will say, no, that's a hoax. It's not good for what we're looking for. Todd Standing, the Discovering Bigfoot documentary, I'm sure you've seen it. How do you feel about it? Because it's just something I'm going to ask people because I always hear mixed feelings on both sides.
Well, I get this question asked quite a bit, and I guess it just.
I hope you don't mind me asking, actually. Yeah.
Oh no, I don't want to give you an answer because I don't know what's real and what's not real with Todd Standing. I think he's probably. I know some people know him quite well and was with him during some of this stuff. So I think probably he has run into some stuff up there,
Yep.
real stuff, and but I think he's also hungry maybe for. And this is just my thoughts. I don't like to chime in on people, but because I'm not their judge and I'm not the jury. What they do and how they do it is up to them.
Yep.
So maybe he got just a little eager to get more attention to it because it was, he thought, real, and he wanted to make something happen. So I don't really know any more than that, and don't even know that. I did hear him talk one time when I was talking at another conference we had in Washington here. And anyway, who knows?
It's just the reason I asked that is because it's such an interesting thing, because if they are real Sasquatch that you're looking at, you know what I mean? When you see the eyes blink and stuff like that, you're kind of going, holy shit, that's pretty incredible stuff if it's real, you know?
Yeah, but once you get caught doing anything something wrong in any of your stories or anything you do, then bam, you're marked off. Yeah, you're off the Christmas list for a lot of people.
Oh, for sure, brother. For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, like you say, he could have some real stuff there, but then it can be with the boy that cried wolf kind of syndrome. But look, Ron, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today and sharing your experiences. Like I say, you're an absolute legend in the world of Bigfoot and Sasquatch, and basically, you know, a very, very honest guy who is not trying to promote more than what you have. You know what I mean? It's very, very easy to.
Well, we got what we got.
Exactly.
You know, people can take it or leave it, but the facts are the facts. We've got the evidence. It's been professionally studied.
Indisputable.
Probably some of the best proof you can have aside from the film. And if you know, so many people have given thumbs up on the film, but that doesn't answer academia because I think they're restricted with their budgets and what they can really talk about, or they'll lose credibility within their colleagues. And I understand. I know these guys, and I've been all over. I've been into Russia. I've been into. I spoke in Moscow Museum one time with a couple of professors, and I've been in South America where those megaliths are and elongated skulls, studying those a couple scientists a couple different times. So, and I went into Nepal also. It's just I've been looking for the answers, and I think the answers lies within this what we've been talking about. Quantum physics is how they do what they do. If they through their vocal mechanism. By the way, I interviewed a lady from the UK. Just do I have another minute to talk? Or
sure, of course,
Oh, I interviewed a lady from the UK who gave a report on Sasquatch Chronicles. I think it's
that's a great show, by the way.
Yeah, West got her, and I got in touch with her, and we did a Zoom back and forth like we're doing now, and talked to her a little more about the encounter she had on the coast of California when she was over here on business. And she had went down to this area in California and walked down to the beach and set up on some rocks, waiting for the sun to go down. Did you hear that?
Lady at the start. That's the lady at the start of the intro. Yeah, tell the story.
And she's sitting there for about an hour, and there are these two adolescents and two female Bigfoots and a big male come walking by on the beach and walked out in the ocean. They didn't notice her. She just sitting there still, and she just dumbfounded. She didn't know what to think of. And that's not something I know a thing about.
No.
So after a while, she said, I got to get a picture of this or something. So she took her camera and dropped her lens cover and it dropped down the rocks. And that kind of drew them to her attention. And the male guy, well, if you've heard the episode, but she drew me a picture and she was saying how when they scream and also when they talk a lot, different tones, their voice, like they got air sacs in their throat and they expand. And that was critical to me because some of the sounds we got suggest that, they're getting the sound. It's like a ventriloquist or something, how they get their voice out so big.
Sure.
And sometimes you think they're standing there holding the mic when really they weren't.
Yeah.
They couldn't have been because we could see the mic sometimes. And so if that's the case, then I also had somebody who, mediator supposedly talking like I don't know what to think of this. I'll tell you what he said.
Yeah, sure.
I said, well, how do they make the sounds? Because one time we thought our camp was being torn apart. We was inside the shelter. We thought all these cans and our barrels being tore up and all the stuff racked around out there. And we looked out there later and nothing had changed. Well, how do you put that? You just sort of put it on the shelf and leave it there because you can't explain it. We should have seen a mess out there and didn't see a mess.
Yeah.
And other things happened too that we just couldn't put a finger on. So how they do these sounds they do besides their vocalizations and how they do what they do. Can they really be out of our perception? Can they be disappeared? Can they do that? Do the trackway stop? There is a science that will solve that. It's quantum physics.
Yep.
Where I was going with that, I'm not sure.
No, it makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. Anyway, what I was going to say, I cut this off a little bit, but I gotta say, if people want to understand more about them, they need to understand more about what we are, because I think there's some kind of connection with us all there.
Sure.
Some alien entity has altered the primates' DNA. I think they mess with different species all over the world. I think they're doing that possibly to acclimate their species to this climate, but they are here. I think they live underwater. I think Bigfoot, possibly a lot of them who are not interdimensional, they just go underground. There's a way to get into these cave systems without.
A lot of
In other words,
undiscovered caves.
that would solve the issue of why they're not being seen. That, and if they're not different, and some of them can change their matter into energy only, they lose their density, their trackway stop, they're able to move through things. So that's where I'm at with them. I believe they're here. I know they're here. I mean, they're right around here in the Olympics where I live now, and I get calls on it all the time. But it's exciting. I got to tell you, it's exciting.
Yeah,
I think these aliens are going to reveal themselves more and more. Media is acclimating us to it all the time.
Yep.
And shows like you're putting on here and others are getting into all the mysteries behind these things. Because why haven't we found one? Why haven't this? How did that disappear? I mean, they've people have told me all kinds of stories. I used to just write them off like a lot of researchers do now still, because they got to just be a wild ape running around the woods, right? No bullshit. No,
It's easy.
They're more than.
It's easy to call people crazy, isn't it? When you don't understand,
Well,
it's so easy.
Any advanced technology, how's this crows? Any advanced technology is the same as advanced technology. How's it go? I wrote that down somewhere. An advanced technology can be thought of as magic until you know the intellect behind it.
Yes.
In other words, there's like, how do spaceships move so fast? Just like that. They do it through consciousness. They have to, because they have to be faster than the speed of light.
Sure.
And according to Einstein, nothing go faster than light, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, things can't go faster. Our thoughts right now are going faster than light. You have to get into consciousness to see how these things move so fast, because they move through consciousness. And and it's been shown now through physics that these electrons will match each other across the universe. Anyway, there's a lot going on. I encourage anybody to look into quantum physics. I encourage everybody to be nice to somebody else. Do your elevation, your vibration frequency, get it higher. You do that through love and compassion. Don't get so pissed off at these old people next to the stop sign that can't see the light or something. Just have compassion for them. You might be one someday.
Damn straight. I love it. That's a great way to close the show. I can't add anything better than that. Listen, Ron, I'd love to have you on again. now that my guests, now that my audience have kind of become climatized to your story, I'm sure it's gonna be a success. You've been an absolute gentleman, and thank you for taking the time out. And we'd love to have you on again. And
Thank you. It's nice to be with you. I am speaking with George Norrie, if you know who he is, in a theater over in Everett here next weekend.
awesome.
Then I'm going to go to Kentucky. I've got a big event back there at Crypticon, I think Crypticon.
Awesome.
And 3,000 people will be there. I'll be speaking there. And I got things like that going on. I'll be back in Washington again in January for another event at Kelso. So, I fail to sometimes get those on my website. I just try to put them on my Facebook page, which is Ronald J. Morehead.
Yep.
And so people can keep up with me. I'm easy to get a hold of. I usually respond to any emails I get one way or the other.
Absolutely.
If it's just a thank you, I try to get to all of them. And that's hard sometimes because some people want to write me a letter.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to be short and sweet, guys. That's
Well, the problem is it's a big deal for them, and I understand, and it's okay. But I don't need to listen to someone for 20 minutes or read about them for 20 minutes when they just had a Bigfoot run behind their car 20 years ago. And they saw it, and
absolutely.
but stuff like that is kind of common because a lot of people are seeing them. They're coming out of the woodwork now, and I think aliens are going to come out of their oceans, wherever they're staying, and they're going to start uncloaking in front of us, and we're going to start having some real eye openers before too long.
I believe so.
World's in for a change.
Absolutely.
Free energy is probably next.
And a treat as well.
The what?
And a treat. A treat. We're in for a change, and it's going to be a treat.
Oh,
it's going to be lovely.
Yes, will be. Yeah, the hereafter is not a bad thing to think about.
No.
We're all incarnated into these bodies to learn something. We're here for the experiment. It's how you respond to the experience that's so important. It's no matter what it is, it's how you respond to it, because somewhere along the line, your soul, your karma, whatever it is, has asked for this so you can experience it. Because there's no such thing as a loser. You will never lose. You either win or you learn something. So I'm to the point where I just want to learn something from every experience I have, no matter what happens, no matter how it happens. My learning evolution, if you want to call it that, comes with understanding and having compassion with it, and accepting what you are and what you have as being okay, and being happy about living, because we're here just to live.
Awesome. Ron, it's been an absolute pleasure, my friend. And
Thank you.
Until next time, you stay safe. All of your links will be below ronmorehead.com. All the links,
Morehead.
Or exactly. Listen, there is only one Mr. Ron Morehead. He has been our guest today. Thank you for taking the time out again, sir. And we will catch you again.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Thank you very much. Yeah.